Oh man, Dave Chappelle showed up at John Mulaney's show. That sounds like it would be pretty cool and everyone would be happy, right? Nope, we'll get to that. Also, a bunch of people left Saturday Night Live. Lots to cover today, but as always, we'll start with late night. Jimmy Fallon said some business news. It's been a rough couple of months for the economy, and I saw that the stock market had its worst day in over 2 years. Stocks fell so fast, the oxygen mask dropped from the ceiling at CNBC. Experts say if this keeps up, every Merrill Lynch office is going to become a spirit Halloween. I like that a lot, except for my investment portfolio. Fallon, things are so bad, they replaced the stock exchange closing bell with the losing sound from Price is Right. Colbert, the Dow took a drubbing after investors were alarmed by disappointing earnings from Target, Walmart, and Lowe's. There's only one solution: release the strategic reserve of dads running little errands. Go get some batteries, guys. Buy some spackle. The little bucket, the one's probably dried out by now. Just put around the paint aisle, pick out swatches. She says she wants yellow, but you don't know which one. Remember, satin shine. It should glow, not glisten, okay? It should have sheen, but not shimmer. So just buy one can of each. Your country needs you. Boy, that sounds like me. Saturday Night Live had its season finale, and we have said goodbye to several cast members, most notably Kate McKinnon and I guess Pete Davidson. But Kate's such an MVP of that show. That's a major loss to thing. Pete, love talking about Pete, but the show will be just fine without Pete Davidson. In fact, in the sketches he did over the weekend, I mean, he was barely reading the cue cards well. Not a good performance. The opening sketch featured Kate McKinnon. She revisited the Close Encounters sketch. She brought back the character Miss Rafferty, who's an alien abductee who goes through a rougher experience than her counterparts. At the end of the sketch, she was getting on a UFO and said, "Well, Earth, I love you. Thanks for letting me stay a while," was her way of saying goodbye to the audience. And she barely got out a live from New York at Saturday night. It was actually quite touching. Pete Davidson stopped by Weekend Update and said, "I never imagined this would be my life. Back then, I was a skinny kid that no one knew which race I was. And now everyone knows I'm white because I became hugely successful while barely showing up for work. Look at me now. I'm aging like an old banana. People who don't think I deserve this job shouldn't hate me since we have so much in common. Like, if anything, I should inspire hope that literally anyone could be on Saturday Night Live. I owe Lorne Michaels and everyone at SNL my life. I'm so grateful, and I wouldn't be here without them." Pete also acknowledged that people were tuning in only to see if he brought up Kanye. Adie Bryant also got a send-off during Weekend Update. She appeared alongside Bowen Yang as their recurring trend forecaster characters. The segment ended with Adie Bryant declaring 10 nice years. And then she got some roses and a kiss on the cheek from Bowen Yang and Michael Che. Kyle Mooney also leaving the show. Maybe I missed it. He didn't really get any kind of send-off. I felt bad for you, Kyle Mooney. Everybody else got their spotlight. I know you're in a couple sketches, but did I miss this? Not sure I missed it. I thought the episode was pretty bad, actually. The best sketch was actually cut for time. I've shared it on Twitter, at Daily Comedy News. It is a parody of Eminem's Forgot the Dre. It was called Forgot Lorne. Pete Davidson rapping about Lorne Michaels. Then it gets interrupted by actual Eminem, who said, "Stop. I would just stop. Yeah, they all sucked." Pete Davidson then is confused and asks if Eminem dislikes the idea of the parody or only him as a person. Eminem just says, "Pete, don't effing do it again." The only other thing of note in a pretty flat episode, despite the farewells, was Natasha Lyonne. She was the guest host. In her monologue, she promoted the new season of Russian Doll on Netflix and said, "Two things you definitely want to be associated with right now are Russia and Netflix." We'll talk a lot more SNL tomorrow, but let's get to this Mulaney thing. Daniel said hi on the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News podcast group, and wrote, "Just got out of the Mulaney show and thought it was fantastic. I recommend people go and see it. Laughs from the start, very well crafted and put together. The first half is about his drug addiction and interventions. Second half is classic observational stuff, and he ties it all together nicely. Seriously, go see it. You can also get a cool shirt like I did." So I'm not sure which show he saw, but it sounds like he had a good time. People who went to Friday night show in Ohio didn't seem to have a good time because Dave Chappelle showed up. Now, maybe it's me. If I'm at a comedy show and Dave Chappelle shows up, I'm like, cool. But BuzzFeed has the headline, "Fans at John Mulaney's show say they felt ambushed when Dave Chappelle opened with anti-trans jokes." One attendee named Morgan, who did not provide her last name, told BuzzFeed News, "I'm just a little disappointed in Mulaney. It hurts to know that Chappelle's transphobia wasn't enough of a deterrent to keep him off the show. I probably wouldn't have gone, or would have at least skipped the openers if I knew Chappelle would be there." He made a joke about when he was attacked, how the guy had a knife that looks like a gun or the other way around. He then said maybe it was a knife that identified as a gun. It reminded me of the "I sexually identify as an attack helicopter" joke that transphobes make. Madison McAleer also attended the show and said he had a bit where he pulled out twin boys from the crowd and said they were paraphrasing, masturbating each other and were gay with one another, which was weird. That does seem a weird place to go, Dave. He only had about 15 minutes of stage time before John Mulaney came up, and I could feel every millisecond of it pass by. It dragged on for so long, it was exhausting. I saw a lot over the weekend on social media about people attending that show not being happy Dave Chappelle showed up. Very, very interesting. The New York Post spoke to Dave Chappelle's attacker. I think we're all starting to drop the alleged part of this. The Post spoke to the guy in jail. The formerly alleged attacker said, "I identify as bisexual, and I wanted him to know what he said was triggering. I wanted him to know that next time he should consider first running his material by people it could affect." He said he expected to have a good time at the show, but he grew angry and frustrated as Dave Chappelle joked about his prior controversies with the LGBTQ community, as well as homelessness. "I'm also a single dad, and my son is 5. It's a struggle, and I wanted Dave Chappelle to know it's not a joke." He said his breaking point came with another comedian in the show's lineup made a crude joke about pedophilia, which he said dredged up memories of his own molestation as a teen. Switching topics, the president of ABC says he's open to Chris Rock returning as host of the Oscars next year. Yeah, that would probably get pretty well viewed. No? I'm all in favor of it because I host a comedy podcast. Craig Erich says, "My assessment of the Oscars was that it was a really successful year for the show. Obviously, there was a lot of controversy, which overshadowed a lot of the positive things about the show, but I was really happy with the program. Even before that very unfortunate moment, the show started off up year over year, and we came back in a big way. It was the biggest bounce back of any award show this season." Yeah, man, there were actually movies. Come on. Aaron Jensen wrote in USA Today, "Will Smith's David Letterman interview is more than just cringy moments following the slap." The Will Smith episode of Letterman's show was released on Netflix on Friday. It was shot in January, so Dave's not a time traveler. Couldn't ask him about the Oscars. But Aaron Jensen writes, "You might snicker when David Letterman compliments Will Smith as introspective or introduces him to an audience in LA as America's friend, or you might cringe when Will Smith gives Letterman tips on fighting, or when the conversation turns to Will's mom, he playfully tells David Letterman, 'Don't say nothing about my mother, Dave.'" If you enjoy what I do here, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. Shannon did just that. Thank you very much, Shannon. Also, I'm a bad person. Dan had done that, and I had missed the notification. So, Dan, much thanks and sorry for the lateness there. You can throw $5 in the tip jar. buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. A listening recommendation for you, Jon Stewart's podcast. He had Judd Apatow on talking about the Carlin doc and really a conversation about George Carlin in general. That was a really good listen. Jon Stewart's podcast isn't that good, but this was a particularly good episode. On your Netflix today, Rickey Gervais' Supernature. I have to remember to actually watch this tonight. I tend to forget. I woke up this morning and I was like, oh yeah, you had all weekend to watch Netflix's The Hall. And I didn't. I'm watching something with J.K. Simmons on Amazon that, like, is it good? Is it bad? Is it trying to be good? Is it trying to be bad? And then my son and I were watching Mythic Quest. I'll talk about Mythic Quest on the weekend. I think Mythic Quest is a grift. Oh, speaking of grifts, you know what's out in 2 days? The Bob's Burgers movie. 3 questions for you. 1, have you heard any buzz at all about the Bob's Burgers movie? You have not. Second question, have you ever seen Bob's Burgers? You haven't. Third question, have you ever met anyone who has seen Bob's Burgers? You haven't. What's going on? Some sort of scam. Rickey Gervais told Stephen Colbert he called the new special Supernature, which is on Netflix now, and I have to remember to watch it, because he tries to debunk the supernatural. Rickey said, "I don't believe in anything supernatural. I believe that anything that exists by definition part of nature and is explainable, if not now, but then eventually. And supernature because I think nature is super enough. I don't need angels and unicorns. I've got the duck-billed platypus." I do actually talk quite a lot about animals. I'm fascinated by animals. The duck-billed platypus is a monotreme, and it produces eggs and milk, and I say it could make its own custard. Colbert added, it also produces a poison from a fang in the back of its leg, so it could be a poison custard. Rickey said, a poison custard, that's your next novel. And that is your comedy news for today. You can follow this show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. You can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews or become a premium subscriber on Apple Podcasts for $5 a month. You get early releases, and those releases are ad-free. See you tomorrow.